Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's last Ascendis Masterminds for Managers webinar for the year. I'm Lauren Young of Freshly Baked Communications, and today I'll be moderating a webinar that's part of a series of interactive experiences with a trusted industry expert. So we're going to be talking a little bit today about performance of your team. It's going to be really exciting. So I hope you're excited for Cassandra O'Neill. Her topic today is 3 things keeping you from being the best boss, and she is the president of the newly renamed Leadership Alchemy. Welcome, Cassandra.
Thank you.
So if you're new to Ascendis Masterminds for Managers, let me give you a little background on this. These are brought to you by the Chicago-based firm Ascendis Learning Connection, which was founded by learning management expert Sue Drake. And our goal today is to provide you with a timely presentation that can be expanded into customized learning modules for your organization. And in turn, we hope that you can use this information to build some supplemental partnerships for your organization and generate new growth and progress. So the Masterminds for Managers webinar series gives you the opportunity to do 3 things. First, we want you to meet one of our subject matter experts who can potentially help you solve a business challenge that may be facing your organization right now. Secondly, we'd like you to experience firsthand a possible solution for that problem that you're dealing with within your organization, and you'll have an opportunity to test the waters before recommending this option internally. And 3, you can see our expert in action to ensure that he or she is a good fit for your organization in terms of his or her style, personality, and the approach. So just a few housekeeping rules before we begin. I have everybody in listen-only mode, so you won't be able to communicate directly with Cassandra and I via the phone, but you can use the chat feature, which is at the lower left-hand corner of your screen. So if you have any questions during the presentation, I'm serving as the moderator. I'll be able to address your questions or feed those to Cassandra as I can throughout the presentation. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, and Cassandra will answer as many questions as she can during our allotted time. So here's what's playing in today's webinar. We usually start off with our challenge of the day, followed by our famous Test the Water segment, which allows you to test drive a sample consulting engagement with Cassandra. And then finally, we'll wrap up today's presentation with the What's the Buzz segment. So we'd love to get your feedback and answer any questions you may have during that time. All right, and this is our internationally acclaimed game that we invite you to play each webinar. If you are new, this is called the Term of the Day, and we unveil a brand new term, Wheel of Fortune style, as you can see here on the screen. The first person who can submit the correct answer, what this Term of the Day is, in the chat field will win 2 entries in our end of the year drawing, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, for a complimentary training facilitated by one of our Ascendis experts. So don't worry if you can't guess the term yet. We will flash this slide again with more letters filled in throughout the course of today's webinar, so best of luck to you. Also, if you're in listen-only mode, maybe you're headed to the airport or you're traveling right now, you can still submit questions to us during this time on Twitter by using our Twitter handle, Drake Ascendis, and the hashtag AscendisMM. So this is great for you to stay included in the conversation if you're not able to view the screen. Okay. So just to give you some details on your host this morning, I serve as the CEO and founder of Freshly Baked Communications. It's a brand marketing strategy and content writing firm, not a bakery. I'm also a 4-time award-winning author, and I travel across the world to speak on how to successfully market a small business on an even smaller budget. If you did register for this webinar in advance, you will have noticed that Cassandra has a very extensive and incredible bio. So instead of reading all of that, I'd like everybody to get to know Cassandra a little better. So Cassandra, if that's okay with you, I'll just ask you a few questions.
Sure.
All right, perfect. So the question that I want to know, I've known you for about a year now, and you've just recently changed your business name to Leadership Alchemy. So what is the meaning of this new business title?
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. You know, I call myself in my 3.0 version of consulting right now, and so the term that I thought really expressed where my work was going and where I was being called to work with people is around the leadership aspect. And wanting to combine that, it's a topic that everyone hears a lot about. I think there's so many books written on it, so many people have so many things to say about it, and it's really a magical kind of a thing when it works. It's not a recipe. There's not a cookbook that you can follow. So that's why I kind of combined the alchemy idea that you have these raw materials, and that when intentional skill is applied and a little bit of magic, that the leadership emerges to be what the group most needs at that time.
I like that. Very catchy. All right. One more question before we begin. You've been traveling a lot this year, and when we chatted last week, you made this fantastic analogy about travel and leadership. Would you mind sharing that again with our audience today?
Yeah, so I have been traveling a lot and really trying intentionally to do something at least that I don't do on a daily basis every day, but oftentimes something that I'm afraid to do. And I kind of got this idea from that Eleanor Roosevelt quote, and then there was a book written about somebody that did this, do something every day that you're afraid of. And to me, it really connected with leadership, because in leadership, if you're not doing something new, if you're not doing something that's challenging that you're afraid of, you're probably not really engaging in leadership, because the conditions that we're all working in right now are kind of unprecedented in the amount of change and the pace, and we have to dig deep to really look at how we can get out of our old ways of thinking and behaving and look to the new and look to doing things that we might not have done before. So that was the connection that I was making.
That's great, and I believe that as well. So let's get into it. I'm very excited to hear what you're going to present today. So as Cassandra begins, I'd like to let everybody know that she has a very special giveaway for you at the end of the presentation. So be sure to pay close attention to the information she is about to share. Take it away, Cassandra.
Okay, well, thank you, Lauren. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here. And we're going to start off with a quick poll. So everyone get ready to type. Now, the questions that are going to come up are statements. And so the poll question is to read the statements and then pick the one that is most true for you. So I'm going to read them. The first statement is, I can't get my team to work my way. The second statement, my staff requires micromanagement. The third statement, my team doesn't problem solve well. And the fourth statement, I have to do everything in my team. Now, if one of these rings most true for you, hopefully you don't feel this way every day, but if you do feel one of these statements is true for you, please let us know which one rings most true for you. If you're a boss and you are on this call, I'm imagining that you're thinking of the thoughts that you have. Think to yourself when you think about your team and the challenges that you face.
All right, so it looks like people are chiming in. We're going to give you about 5 more seconds to make your decision here. 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm going to close the poll. And Cassandra, what do you see on your end?
Okay, I see, I don't see the percentages. I see the responses.
Okay, they should pop up quickly for you. Looking from my end, it looks like 44% of everyone is saying my team doesn't problem solve well. So that seems to be the majority, followed by about a third saying my staff requires micromanagement.
Okay, so that's interesting. Those top 2 that people are saying is true for them is around the staff that they're supervising needing a lot of help from them, needing a lot of direction, and not being able to problem solve on their own. So if you're on this call, I'm imagining that you want to have a different future for your team. So that's what we're going to talk about for the rest of the time, is getting to that better future. Okay,
All
Lauren,
right. I'm gonna jump back in for a quick second. This is our term of the day. We've filled in just a couple of additional spaces here for you, so take a look. All right. Remember, the first person who can submit the correct answer in the chat field will win 2 entries in our end-of-the-year drawing for a complimentary training facilitated by one of our Ascendis experts. So good luck. All right. So I'm going to move on. I don't see any correct answers in the chat yet. I'm going to move on to the Test the Water segment. So remember, this is the time that you get to it looks like we have a couple of people who have guessed the term of the day. I will reveal the winner in just a minute, but I'm going to let Cassandra go ahead and start the Test the Water segment.
Okay. So one more poll at the moment. So if you think your team is not performing as they should, what is holding them back? Is it you, is it them, or is it something else? All right.
Feel free to go ahead and guess. This is reply all, or select all that apply to you. And I'll go ahead and turn off the poll in just a couple of seconds. Yes, Julie, you can select multiple ones, so feel free. Oh, that's okay, no problem. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll in 3, 2, 1. All right, let's see the results. All right, Cassandra, can you see them on your end as well?
Yeah, I cannot see the percentages again, but the 2 highest is them or something else.
Mm-hmm. About 44%.
Okay, so the smallest number of people thought it might be them. I'm going to start there, and if it is you, this is for you, and if you don't think it's you, maybe it might be something that you can think about. So here's a few questions, and this is part of an assessment that I developed that I've been working with teams, and as Lauren said, there's a special offer at the end that everyone will be getting this assessment. So don't worry about writing these down, or if you think, oh, I want to have those questions, they are going to be available to you. So the first set of questions to think about, is it you? Have you wondered if the challenges you are having with your team are a result of something you are doing or not doing? Have the challenges you're having now happened before? Is it a recurring pattern? And what is your self-talk like? Is it blaming and judgmental? Is your wallow factor high? Do you move through disappointment slowly? So thinking about the answers to these questions, the more yeses, the more likely that it might have something to do with you. So inspiration is something that we all need. And if you're wondering if you might be the source of kind of your dissatisfaction with how your team's going, really tap into and think about what inspires you to lead your team. What is inspiring you to be at work? What is inspiring you to do the job that you have? So one of the things that we're going to do right now, really quick activity, is from Appreciative Inquiry, which is looking at what's working well with questions. So think of a time when you felt alive, excited, and engaged as a leader. What was happening? What did you contribute? And what are the essential ingredients that brought that leadership alive? What images came to mind when you heard those questions or when you read them on the screen? Here's a couple more. Imagine a future where you are feeling alive, excited, engaged as the leader of your team right now. Think about what that might look like. And what are 3 wishes for your leadership? So we're going to give you a chance to type that in so that we can all hear and see your wishes for your leadership.
All right. So everybody, once again, lower left-hand corner of the screen, there's a chat field. You can go ahead and type in your 3 wishes for leadership here, and we can share just a couple. We'll have a chance, to be able to do that. So what are you used to hearing when you ask this question, Cassandra? What comes up pretty frequently?
That's a good question, Lauren. And, people generally do have common wishes. They want to feel appreciated and valued and that they're contributing and making a difference. And I would say those are kind of universal wishes that people have around their leadership.
Perfect. Looks like Tony is saying a cohesive, well-oiled machine and progress for leadership.
Mhm.
Those are pretty good. What does a well-oiled leadership team look like for you, Cassandra?
I was just thinking that. Thinking that is an interesting metaphor. I think that it would be a team that has trust. The number one kind of factor that determines whether a team works together well or not is the level of trust.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Just a couple of more here. Let's see. Jay says problem solving is in flow, not bogged down. Julie says she'd like to have happy clients and contractors who feel self-actualization. That's a great one. Lee says respect, synergy, and appreciation. I like those 3 as well. And then Liz says to successfully work together, enjoy working together, and to communicate well. Those are pretty great. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, those are. Yeah. Seeing problems or obstacles as opportunities. Yes, my friend calls that problemtunity. And letting the problem solve you instead of having to solve it. Mm-hmm. So this is a renewal. It's an interesting topic because what does it have to do with this in terms of you leading your team? Well, if you are not feeling inspired and you're not feeling refreshed, then really think about what do you need to do to renew yourself. And interestingly, I just watched this Simon Sinek TED Talk again this morning. I don't know how many people here have watched it. I've probably seen it a dozen times. But he talks about this concept of the golden circle, and that what differentiates leaders and organizations that are extraordinary is that they start with the why of what they're doing. Why do they exist? What do they believe? Why are they doing what they're doing? And that they operate out of that, and that they communicate out of that. And that the non-extraordinary, the ordinary companies or organizations, they work the other way. They talk about what they do and how they do it. And, it's very, very challenging to make this shift. I remember using this video in a training and then immediately giving people a chance to talk about their why, and people just defaulted to their kind of elevator speech about what they did and how they did it, and everyone just laughed. So we are going to give you a second to think about it, and then to type in, what is your why? Why do you get up in the morning and go to work every day? What if you reconnected to it? What if you renewed your relationship with your why would make a difference for you, would help you feel more inspired and be able to communicate more from that source of inspiration?
That's a really great question, too. All right. So everybody feel free to chat with us again. Give us your inspiration for working every morning, what gets you excited about what you do, what pushes you forward. All right. Oh, they're starting to come in pretty fast. Okay. So Sue says to provide a meaningful work environment for her clients, colleagues, and consultants, which is great. Tony says he loves his job. He loves his coworkers. He loves his patron. He loves everything that he does, good and not so good. That's great. That's a great way to keep a positive attitude. Julie says she loves being able to help others learn. And let's see, Lee just chimed in with customer satisfaction. So there's a lot of love around this, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so if you're fired up and inspired and charged, then let's move on to look at your team. What's going on with them? What might be happening? Is there a system to measure the performance? Is there a way to assure that the strengths of your team are aligned with their roles? And is there a way to assess the clarity of the goals and objectives? One of the things that is very common is that people that are in supervisory positions think that they've been clear with their team, but the team does not feel clear. And often this is not known to the person who is in the supervisory position. So that's why this question and a series of questions is really getting into not just what do you think you've said or do you think you've been clear, but is there really a way that you can get some data around how clear the goals and objectives are? Are people working with their strengths? And do they know what the goal is? So agreements is a resource for this area to really look at what agreements are there and are they in writing. So this is something that it's really clear when you have agreements in writing about what the goals are and what people are aligning around. And it's not just enough to have agreements. You know, you really need to think about, do you have them within your team? Do you have them about your meetings, about how work gets done, and about how you want to treat each other? So not just one global set of agreements, but really getting into the specifics of the situations in which the work happens every day. So looking at what those are. And then, are you holding yourselves accountable to these, or how are you holding yourself accountable? Having agreements that are not held, it's almost like not having them. So I know that people have been in meetings, I know I have, where somebody gets up and says, okay, here's our agreements for the meeting, you know, X, Y, Z. And then, you know, within 5 minutes, people are going against the agreements. And if nobody says anything, it's like you don't even have agreements. And then in some cases, people feel like it's just even worse to say what they are and then ignore them than it is to even not say anything. So looking at what are the mechanisms that your organization has for holding people accountable? And what skills do you and your team have for having these difficult conversations? And what is the level of trust among you and your team? So if you have these agreements, but you don't have the trust or the skill level, they're probably not going to be upheld. So really it's looking at, as a resource to this issue about what might be happening to your team, to really looking at, you know, maybe it isn't just the things that the people are bringing with them individually. It's not the individual team members. Maybe it has something to do with what is or isn't clear in terms of how people are relating to each other. So this next slide is a quote that I often use because it really talks about what it looks like when leadership is happening. So go to the people, live with them, learn from them, love them, start with what they know, build with what they have. But with the best leaders, when the work is done, the task accomplished, the people will say, we have done this ourselves. Okay, so is it your environment? We've talked about, is it you? We've talked about, is it your team? And if you remember at the opening poll, we said, is it you, is it your team, or is it something else? And that something else is often your environment or your culture. So is there a culture of high performance and learning in your organization? And are you and your team set up to succeed? So one of the things that contributes to a culture of high performance is acknowledgement. And Lauren, when you asked me before, what do people say their wishes are for their leadership? You know, it often is this human need that we have to be acknowledged for our contributions.
Okay.
So how do you do, sorry?
No, I was saying that's interesting.
Yeah, so how do you do that? How do you make that part of your culture? Because it's not something that is normally part of a culture unless there's some kind of practices or system or structure to encourage it. And I'm not talking about being fake. I mean, people generally really have a lot of regard for the people they work with, and it's just not spoken. So using something like this book, The How Full Is Your Bucket, it gives tools for organizations so that you can ask people how they want to be acknowledged and set up some simple practices to communicate your appreciation to each other. And then setting that as kind of a norm for how you do work. And that can really make a huge difference. Another key thing with high performance is mastery. It is the opportunity for people to get better at what they're doing. Again, another human need to feel like we're good at what we're doing. So this is from Dan Pink's work where he talks about what is motivating to people. And it is this combination of having a purpose and being autonomous and having mastery. So we have another poll. And this is a chance for people to pick just one thing. So you may be interested in using more than one of these strategies, but we're asking you in this poll just to pick one. As we're kind of closing out, we're thinking about, okay, you've had some ideas, you've thought about some things. What's something that you might want to use right away? So professional development is one, application of learning at work, learning or professional development goals as a strategy to help people guide their own learning and professional development, to raise meeting facilitation skills among your team, if you think that's something that might really help you make a shift so that you have that future team that you want right now, and or increasing your capacity in target areas. So picking a particular skill or a topic and having people learn about it. So we'll see what people want to do as they think about their takeaways for this time.
All right, so it looks like everybody's voting now. I'm going to give you 3 more seconds. 2, 1. All right, let's go to the final results of this last poll. And what do you think, Cassandra?
Looks like the highest vote getters are the professional development and the increasing capacity in a targeted area.
Okay. Very cool. Are those in line with what you expected, or are those pretty new for you?
I think it's interesting. Nobody picked the learning or professional development goals, which is interesting to me. And I'm curious about why that is. But the professional development, I think, is something that, you know, depending on the sector, it is not necessarily a given. The social sector is sometimes very under-resourced in terms of professional development. And so I think that may be something that is easy to do if you think about, you know, different ways of doing it, and even just, you know, having a book group or reading a book together is a way to help people. So I think those are interesting.
Okay. Julie has a quick question for you. She's saying she's not sure if she understood what you meant by professional development goals. Can you give us a couple of examples?
Yeah, well, so it's interesting because I work with a lot of educators, and they often have individual development plans for each year, and they have at least one goal for themselves for the year. So it would be something that you want to learn or improve upon, and it's written in a kind of action plan format.
Got it. Hopefully that helps, Julie. Okay. All right. Anything else that you wanted to say before we go to the What's the Buzz segment, Cassandra?
Nope.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much. That was great. And now we want to hear just a little bit more from you on the call. What did you come away with during this webinar? Is there an example or a statistic or maybe a statement that made you pause and think about your own organization? So Cassandra and I invite you to share some last-minute thoughts with us in the chat field one last time. And here is our last fill-in for the word of the day or the term of the day, but we don't need to do this because we had 4 or 5 people come up with the correct word, which was teamwork today. The very first person, the fastest typer, though, was Tony. So, Tony, congratulations. You win our last 2 entries in the end of the year drawing for one of our complimentary trainings hosted by one of our Ascendis experts. So congratulations. And thanks for everybody who guessed it so quickly. You guys are really, really good. I know Tony says he watches Wheel of Fortune very frequently, so he was ready for it today, right? So Cassandra also has, I mentioned that there's a special offer for everybody who joined us live today. Can you explain this assessment to the crowd, Cassandra?
Yeah, so I mentioned it earlier. I had developed this assessment. It's a 2-pager, and you'll all get a copy of it. And again, it's some of the questions, they should look familiar. They're the ones that I went through on the slides. And it's really been interesting to use it with groups. And, you know, I'm giving it all to you so that you can use it yourself, or you can print it out and give it to other people that you work with. And again, it was meant to be super quick and easy. So the questions are, you know, yes, no, and then there's some reflecting questions afterwards. So it's a tool to really think about what's going on and where might be the best point of entry, because I know sometimes people will look up at me and say, what if it's all 3? And I will say, well, then pick the one that you want to focus on. And you know, depending on your position in your organization, that may be with you, it may be with your culture. But again, if it is all 3, pick somewhere to start and do what you can.
All right. I like that idea. So everybody is going to receive this assessment tool. Look for your email within the next 24 to 48 hours. You should be receiving that. So go ahead and try that out. And if you have any other questions, just reach back out to us here at the Ascendis Learning Connection, and Cassandra and the team will be able to assist you with that. Okay. So if you're interested in learning more about today's program, you can find more information on our website, ascendislearning.com, but I'd like to also draw your attention to our website here, alc.ascendislms.com. This is where you can find today's recording within the next few hours. It's called 3 Things Keeping You from Being the Best Boss, or you can also look for the Leadership Alchemy page on the Ascendis LMS. If you're not familiar with the Ascendis LMS, let me take just 1 minute to talk to you about it. So earlier this year, we unveiled this as our newest resource for online and self-paced corporate learning, and we have named it the Ascendis LMS. So our team would like to invite your staff, your executive leadership group, just to gain some in-depth access to our global thought leaders and this expansive collection of their top presentations that were previously only available through individual consulting programs. So you have an opportunity to do a test drive with some of these. You can receive 90-day access to one of the experts' full listing of premium content. So this is pretty cool because you can go through the areas of business acumen, leadership, marketing, sales, strategy. You can pick one of these areas and gain 90-day access to that information, which is pretty cool. You also have the opportunity to register for some groundbreaking cohort and self-paced online sessions. So if you wanted to bring in a group of people or you want to try something on your own, you can work with people across the United States and beyond who are also going through the same program, which is pretty cool. And then finally, you have access to our expert instructors for guidance and support during the online courses. So just because the courses are online, it does not mean that you don't have a direct line or connection to the expert. So you can work through with customized questions that you may have and any scenarios that you'd like to work out. So I think it's a great deal. There's also complimentary content available on the LMS to help your team decide which experts access, their premium access is needed to move your initiatives forward. So if you'd like to try business acumen or you're thinking about strategy, any of those combinations you can try and then settle on the premium access that works best for you. So if you'd like to join the Ascendis LMS, you can visit the website here. It's listed at the bottom of the screen, alc.ascendislms.com, or you can send us an email here at hello@drake-resources.com, and our leader, Sue Drake, is happy to chat with you. All right. So I'll go back to the chat one last time. It looks like Sue said she's going to think about her 3 wishes for leadership more. She wasn't able to come up with them quickly that she'd like to focus on for her own leadership development path. So thank you, Cassandra, for giving her a little bit of thought around that. That's a good thing to do at the end of the year. All right. So I don't see any other questions or feedback here in the chat. Tony says, well done. Thank you, Tony. We do try here. I'd like to thank everybody for your participation this morning or early afternoon during the question and answer session and for the whole webinar. So, Cassandra, you are our last expert for the year. Well done. I'd like to say thank you very much on behalf of the entire Ascendis team for your participation, and we hope that you learned something new that you can share with your team and finish up the year very strong. So take care, and we will chat with you again in 2017.